how 7-Eleven changed their hiring game with the help of Paradox. Recorded live at Unleash America in Las Vegas. It's next on the podcast.
Welcome to RecTech, the podcast where recruiting and technology intersect. Each month, you'll hear from vendors shaping the recruiting world, along with recruiters who'll tell you how they use technology to hire talent. Now, here's your host, the mad scientist of online recruiting, Chris Russell.
RecTech Media Travel to Unleash is sponsored by Pillar. Great teams start with great interviews. Modernize your interview process with AI-powered interview intelligence. Book a demo today at pillar.hr. Enjoy today's audio.
Tonight as well. So this is a very exciting time, right? We're like right at the halfway point. My name is Paul Bunda, and I'm with Recruiting Toolbox, John Vlastelica and team, and we're all about helping our clients hire better. And we're excited to, and I'm excited to introduce Rachel Allen, Senior Director, Talent Acquisition at 7-Eleven. Rachel comes with a ton of experience and expertise in multi-channel talent sourcing. And I'm super excited because today she's going to talk about 7-Eleven's high-volume recruitment journey. And in particular, a journey that is centered on being customer-obsessed and then powered by conversational ATS. Right? So we're going to see how that all happens. And they've gotten some really impressive results already, so we're going to have the chance to kind of see and take a little peek under the hood. So please, join me in giving a round of applause.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Like you just said, my name is Rachel Allen, and I am with 7-Eleven. I lead talent acquisition there. Figured I'd share a little bit about me first, and then I'll share a little bit about 7-Eleven, and we'll dive in. So I'm actually a boomerang. This is my second time back at 7-Eleven. Yes, I'm crazy, and I love it. That's why I came back. It's been great. My side job outside of 7-Eleven, I'm also a mom to 3 children, 12, 10, and almost 7. I have a fur baby that we rescued too, named Teddy. This will be my 15th year wedding anniversary with my husband. I love true crime podcasts. I love reading books and listening to books. My favorite movie ever is The Goonies. My favorite TV show ever was Alias. My favorite color is red. Now you know everything there is to know about me. So that's me. And before I jump into a little bit about 7-Eleven, I want to ask a question real quick. So how many hires do you think 7-Eleven does in a year? Any guesses?
100K?
100,000? 80,000? All right, it's always interesting to ask that because while 7-Eleven is a very iconic, massive global brand that you're familiar with, what I'm talking about today is actually specific to the US and Canada only. So sometimes when you ask about how much hiring there is in a year, I get a lot of hundreds of thousands based on knowing that we're across the globe, right? And so someone who said 100,000, pretty dead on. About 112,000 hires a year in US and Canada. We have over 70,000 employees, again, US and Canada, and 13,000 locations, again, US and Canada. And of those 13,000 locations, about 45% of them are corporate. So what I'm sharing about today is that's the scope that I'm going to talk about today. It is specific to 7-Eleven Inc., which is US and Canada. What people don't know, 7-Eleven Inc. is actually owned by a Japanese company. So we are owned by 7 & 9 Holdings. We are a Japanese-owned company. And a lot of people don't know about the family of brands that we've got. So you're familiar with 7-Eleven, but you'll see up there also on the logo, Speedway, which we just acquired a few years ago. Also Stripes, and with Stripes came something called Laredo Taco Restaurant. If you're in South Texas, you may be familiar with that. And then we also have a concept for Southern Chicken called Raise the Roost. So what I'm talking about today is all of the locations in the US and Canada across all of those brands that are our corporate stores. But we are still a very massive global iconic brand, and you can see we are in over 84,500 locations globally in over 19 countries. And all of the countries outside of the US and Canada are led by licensees, so a master licensee will own for each country. So our mission is to make our customers' lives a little bit more awesome every day by providing them what they want, where they want, and when they want it, and we call that customer obsessed. And we do consider ourselves customer obsessed. Okay, so So that's a little bit about 7-Eleven. Let's dive into what we're here to talk about today, which is cracking high volume recruitment. So when I entered 7-Eleven the second time, when I came back a couple of years ago, there were some things that I noticed that were consistent across the brands with the challenges that we faced. And something I want to, just a little bit of context here, the resource modeling was a little bit different on the legacy 7-Eleven side versus the legacy Speedway side. So when we did acquire Speedway, they had over 300 decentralized recruiters out in the field that were helping all of our stores. So they were helping our stores hire their folks. Legacy 7-Eleven side, our store leaders led all of that, and they did not have that resource, right? So two totally different resource models, but even with the two totally different resource models, this still is the same across the board. It was a slow manual hiring process that took a lot of time, either for those recruiters that were helping or our store leaders. It was quite clunky, right? A lot of drop-off. I'm sure you guys can relate to this. We have a lot of no-shows. They wouldn't even show up for the interview, and then we'd hire them and they wouldn't show up on day one. We just weren't even getting them, and that was a huge struggle across the board. And a big part of the reason why they weren't showing up on that day is the competition. Someone down the street had grabbed them, and we had missed out on that top talent. So that was something we saw across the board. So from a TA perspective, those were the challenges that I'd seen coming in there. But now let's sit in our store manager's shoes. They're the real superheroes here, right? They do so much, and we ask of them so much. They are the merchandiser, they are the category manager, they are the cashier, they are the cleaner, they are the manager, they do everything. And then when we're asking them to stop and pause and find some people to help them out at their stores, that's usually when they're one or two people down. They're inundated, they're overwhelmed, they have so much on their plates. And then on top of that, we need them to go through this clunky manual process to get more people into their stores to help them out with everything. So it also is a vicious cycle when you think about it, right? So we're seeing the challenges we're having across what recruitment looks like, the role that our store leaders lead, and then there's this vicious cycle. They're understaffed. Well, the people who are left and who are there taking up all the slack, they're getting frustrated. Then they end up leaving, so we're even more understaffed at this point. And when a store is understaffed, you start to see the customer experience go down, and that's hard for us because we consider ourselves customer obsessed. And there is a direct correlation that when we are not serving our customers the right way and our customer experience goes down, so does our revenue. Right, so we need to be able to solve for this to make sure that we're not hitting our bottom line based on being understaffed. So we knew we needed to alleviate our hiring manager's workload and keep locations staffed with qualified talent. And I want to highlight that word qualified because up to this point I've been talking about we're losing out on the talent. They went down the street before we could get to them. So obviously we need to speed things up, but we also don't want to lose touch with the right people. It needs to be the qualified ones, not just getting to them faster. So I want to highlight that. All right, so I already kind of touched on this. What did the resources look like before? When I walked into the door, there were two different resource models. And like our legacy Speedway side had those 300 field recruiters, the 7-Eleven didn't. So what did we do first? Okay, well the first thing that we did was mimic the Speedway way and add recruiters on the 7-Eleven side because our store leaders needed something, right? So we saw that there was challenges. The one thing we could immediately do was help on the resource side of things. So we did. We added 100 contract recruiters. The reason that it's only 100 versus the 300 you see in the Speedway side is, again, Legacy 7-Eleven is primarily franchised. And we do not support or help with any hiring on the franchise side, right? So we did not need as many on that. But even with adding those resources, those three challenges that I talked about at the beginning didn't go away. That still existed, right? And then not just our own challenges that we face specific to 7-Eleven, take a step back and let's look at the macroeconomic picture going on. I think everyone can relate to this one. That gap right there, what it's showing is how many openings there are and how many people we need to find. And then the second bar is how many people are available. The math doesn't work. There's a big gap. And it was not working for us too. And we couldn't get to the people fast enough. Something else that I find interesting right here that you'll see on this Indeed note is for every applicant that I was seeing for a 7-Eleven store, they had applied to 14 other places that week. And so by the time our store leaders or our recruiters were getting to those candidates, they'd already gotten a job from one of those 14 other places. And so this really hit home for us to understand why we were having the no-shows that we were having. And then on top of it, we knew we needed to be 24/7. So our stores operate 24/7. So guess what? Our candidates want to talk to us 24/7. And we found out that the majority of the folks that were engaging with us were doing so outside of normal business hours. Now, I'll say this is not specific to 7-Eleven data only. Our partner, Paradox, actually gathered this for us. It's an aggregate of what they see from their customers, but what I can say is this is definitely directionally accurate for us. And the majority of our candidates are engaging with us outside of those business hours. So we needed a solution that answered those three challenges that we already talked about, really helps our store leaders, and is able to work with us 24/7, just like our stores operate. All right, so if that wasn't enough, I kind of already touched on this too. Let's add in a little bit of complexity specific to 7-Eleven. And Speedway, we're on two totally different tech stacks. Yay! So that just makes it that much more fun. So everything that's happening on the legacy 7-Eleven side is through iCIMS and Oracle. Everything on the Speedway side is on Workday. So our candidates are getting a different experience. Our store leaders are getting a different experience. It's not even consistent within our own family of brands, right? And that just added to the complexity, everything that we needed to solve for. All right, so we knew, based on all of that, we needed to make a big change that was going to impact in a big way and alleviates all the challenges that we just talked about. And so we knew that we needed a solution that was going to automate as much as possible. So when we're looking at the challenges, and we see that we're not winning the race to the talent, candidates are applying to 15 other places, they're not showing up either for an interview, they're not showing up when we've hired them for their job. Our store leaders have so much on their plate, they can't get it done. Even adding the resources, we were still too late to the game. So what was the answer? We needed to automate as much as possible. So we went after an AI solution to automate the front part of the recruiting process. And by doing so, we solved that other problem I talked about of the two different tech stacks, because we were able to wrap it across both of our ATSs. So as far as experience goes, our candidates and our store leaders now felt like they had the same experience, even though behind the scenes it's being fueled by two different engines, but they didn't know that. So it also solved for that, and like I said, it automated 95% of our process, which was huge. Also, we chose a solution that was fast and mobile first, and that's important. We talked about being customer obsessed and giving our customers what they want and where. Well, for us, this was that where aspect, right? They're going to want to be able to do it on their cell phones, and we were able to do that. And it's mobile first versus mobile optimized. And then again, that customer obsessed win. All right, through this, we were now able to engage with our candidates 24/7, like they were telling us they wanted to be, right? Also, real cool part, remove some of those really annoying pieces, like logins and passwords. Our candidates aren't having to do that anymore, which is really cool. They're just basically texting to apply. And that helped with the drop-off, and then also it helped with having to wait on someone. They didn't have to wait for a person to get to them. It was all automated. That 95% was automated, and so that really decreased our drop-off, and we started seeing candidates actually show up for their interviews, and candidates actually show up for work on the first day. And then again, I already mentioned it helped solve that problem of an experience of two different tech stacks. And it helped Workday and iCIMS for us have one experience for our candidates and our store leaders, which was really great. So I do want to take a quick view on some of the big results that we have. It's a really cool day at work when you get to go and share stuff like this to your executive leadership team. That's really fun, and that was an exciting day for me too, because we figured out that we were saving our store leaders over 40,000 hours a week. And yeah, it was a big one. And we did get a round of applause from our executives, actually. That was a big one, especially our operations leaders, right? And when I talked about what our store leaders did in the beginning, they're everything. They're merchandisers, they're category managers, they're cashiers, they're all of that. They need these 40,000 hour weeks, or 40,000 hours to put back towards the store. That's actually what they're there for, right? On top of that, I talked about how we saw with Indeed that our candidates were applying to 14, 15 other places, and we weren't winning the race to them. Now, 85% of our applicants are scheduled for an interview within an hour of starting to communicate with us through the solution that we implemented. And that is how we were winning, and they were actually showing up for them because it was happening so quickly. Another really cool one is before we implemented the solution, our time to hire across both brands was over 10 days on both sides. Overnight, when we turned this on, our time to hire went from over 10 days to less than 5. So we had an immediate over 50% decrease in time to hire, and now we're less than 3. So it's only getting better. So we wanted to address that, the issue of speed, and we absolutely did, which was really cool. All right, so a little bit more of what the impact was and what some of the results. So I'm going to take a little bit of a step back here, and I want to address something that I think a lot of folks can worry about. So there is that fear, right, that AI is taking jobs. And I have to share that we did eliminate those 400 recruiters that were out in the field. But we did that before we ever considered an AI solution. So in our situation, a business decision was made that we wanted our stores to be held accountable to their labor optimization, because that impacts the bottom line. They own their P&L, and they needed to be held accountable to their labor optimization, and the best way to do that is to really own it. So a business decision was made. They need to own it. These extra resources are actually hiding some things and not helping in the big picture. And so what that meant is these decentralized recruiters are no longer there. It now fell in my shop to handle centrally. So we centralized the support of our stores through my team. And so when I got this, right, it had not been in my world yet. I am now, it's now sitting in my shop. I've lost all of these extra resources that were helping before. So I was real quick to push that solution for technology. And I made a commitment to our operations then and there. We're going to need technology that's going to help us with this if we're going to be successful if this is sitting in my shop. So yes, there's that fear AI is taking jobs. For us, it was actually the opposite. It was a business decision that led to needing a technology that could support this business decision that we made and support our store leaders to be successful in this new environment. Plus, I was able to redistribute some of that talent, and I actually doubled my field recruitment team and I doubled my TA operations team. So I actually grew my team as a result of it. Okay, so we talked about the issues that we were facing and the challenges and why we needed to find a solution and how we got to the solution that we did. So let's see what that actually looks like for us, right? So on the left is the experience that our store leaders get now. Prior to this solution, you had to open a rec, you had to post a rec, you had to stay on top of unposting and reposting to get any activity, or opening a new one. When someone would ask how many openings are there or what's going on at the store level, we had no idea, no clue. Because the reality is what ended up happening is you just did evergreens and they were just always open. And then the stores, the store leaders are having to do this and they're not recruiters, and so they wouldn't move it to the right rec to actually hire on, and they'd try to hire on the evergreen, or they'd mess up the evergreen or open another evergreen. The data was awful. You couldn't see anything. Now, my team centrally owns all data that is fed out there, and I can have a good view and I have visibility to the activity that's really happening out there. And it's so easy for our store leaders to literally just toggle. They just push a button. What you're seeing on the left is a list of the things they have in their store, and they're like, yep, this is the one I need. It toggles on, automatically goes to our career site, and then any other posting partnerships that we have as well. What's cool too, when I say it gives us true visibility of what's really happening at our stores, well, that's because the way we set it up is interviews automatically happen. And so if a store leader doesn't want people to keep just showing up, they're actually going to turn it off. And so now I have a clear view of the activity that's really happening. If it's toggled on, it's because something's actually really needed there. And if it's toggled off, I should be able to assume that maybe they're fully staffed. And then we were able to provide a recruiting assistant that we gave to both our store leaders and our candidates. We named our recruiting assistant Rita. Rita stands for Recruiting Individuals Through Automation, and that's why we named her Rita. We had a different version of this solution with Speedway before I ever came back to 7-Eleven, but I have been accused of looking like Rita. But I promise, Rita was not designed for me. She already existed, I promise. But she lives in a lot of different places. The one on the left is our career site. If you go to our career site, you can talk to Rita there. In the middle, you can see this is, we'll have these at all of our stores. We have QR codes or a code that you can text, and candidates can start chatting with Rita through their cell phone, and that's what you see on the right is what it looks like when Rita is talking to you through chat. And what's really cool about that, right, is it feels like a conversation, and that's a big reason why we went with the solution that we did. But on behind the scenes, Rita is building out the application that we actually need in order to be able to move forward in the process. So we were able to customize at different places along the process for us, which was pretty cool. At apply-in screen, it is conversational, so Rita's asking a few questions. She does, and based on those questions, we set it up to where interviewing is automatic. You can do that differently, right? You don't have to do that. But the way we do that is our store leaders do own their availability. They have to go in and put their availability. And what we found worked best is being like every Tuesday and Thursday from 3 to 7 or whatever that is my availability. So they know they could show up at that store and there could be candidates at any time during that period. But they don't just have to know that. Rita does remind them. Rita reminds both our store leaders and our candidates whenever there's going to be an interview. And that actually has also helped with decreasing that no-showing issue, right? She's constantly reaching out saying, don't forget. And she says things like, good luck, you're going to be great. It's going to, those types of things. And our candidates feel like they're really having a conversation with someone that cares about how they're going to do in this. And that's really helped our experience. And then what's really cool is she can actually do Q&A for our candidates. So what do the uniforms look like? What do benefits look like? That type of stuff. And she's able to answer all of that for us before she ever comes into an interview with the hiring manager. All right, so I called out before, there's that fear, right, of AI taking away jobs. There's also taking humans out of the process. The way we designed it and the way we look at it is we actually sped up the process to the human, right? So we were able to automate so much of the front part. The lag of waiting to get to an actual person speeds up real fast. And so then the people in the process can add the value where the value matters most in the high-touch parts of the process. And so we see it as just speeding it up to getting to the human, which is pretty cool. She also helps with our offers. The store leader can have the offer sent to the candidate. Fun detail, I was able to customize the confetti. Our confetti is Slurpees. Pretty cool. So you can make the confetti what you want, and it makes it just that much more of a fun experience for them. A few other things that are available through using AI in the beginning of the process. Our assistant that we created, Rita, is multilingual. So our candidates can either just start speaking in another language or ask Rita if she knows how to speak in French. And then Rita will complete the conversation or all the rest of the questions in that language. Referrals. If a store associate or a store leader wants to refer someone, they can text Rita and say, I want to refer so-and-so. Rita reaches out to so-and-so and says, hey, so-and-so, this person over here wants to refer you. Click here if you're interested or not. So a much cleaner way of being able to track where our referrals are coming from. You can even get your candidate experience in PS through this. There are surveys that can be sent out, again, all through text. And then it's also just one more channel to activate any kind of employer branding strategy that you have, right? And in our case, what we're doing is we're about to institute a day in the life of. So we, just as important of trying to get all the talent in, now we're also realizing we need the talent that is not a good fit at 7-Eleven to opt out, right? That's also equally as important. And this day in the life is going to help with that. And Paradox actually helped us create this video as well. All right, so where are we going next? Like I mentioned to begin with, the scope of this was US and Canada corporate side. We now want our franchisees to be able to experience the successes that we've seen on the corporate side. So again, we can't tell them how to do or what to do, but we can advocate or share or bring it up. And we're hopeful that they too see the value in this and that they opt in automating their hiring process so that they can spend more of their time at their stores. Personally, I'm excited we're consolidating the tech stack. not really going to make a difference for our store leaders or our candidates. The experience will look the same to them, but it's going to mean a heck of a lot easier, more simplified experience for my team personally that's having to manage this from behind the scenes. And then, of course, just staying close to our partner. With any good partnership, right, you need to help guide them in the direction that they're going. We want to be able to test and prototype and advise Paradox on where we want their solutions to go in the future so that we can continue to stay ahead of the competition. So I hope you got a few nuggets. I'm literally at 15 seconds. Sorry, I can hang around and answer some questions after. But just a reminder, right, for us, our candidates are our customers, so it's so important to us that they have a good experience. And this was just one more way that we were able to make our candidates / our customers' day a little bit more awesome by meeting them where they want, when they want, and how they want, so that we can be customer obsessed both for our candidates and our customers. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Rita.
Sorry about that.
Another episode of RecTech is in the books. Follow Chris on Twitter at Chris Russell or visit rectechmedia.com, where you can find the audio and links for this show on our blog. RecTech Media helps keep employers and recruiters up to date through our podcasts, webinars, and articles. So be sure to check out our other sites, recruiting headlines, and HR podcasters to stay on top of recruiting industry trends. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon on the next episode of RecTech, the Recruiting Technology Podcast.